So this section is going to be on evolution, which is on pages 75 in your handbook. So what I'd encourage you to do is make sure that you go back and read all about evolution first, then follow along as we go through this. I did set a timer this time so that I'm sure that I don't run over and have to cut the video short. When we talk about evolution, remember that the definition of evolution that we talked about is a change in a population over generations. So we're going to write that. Change in a population over generations. An individual cannot evolve. A single organism cannot evolve. So if I have a bacteria and I put an antibiotic on it, that bacteria does not evolve. If I have an insect and I spray a pesticide on it, that insect does not evolve. It's changes in the population or a group of organisms over generations. And this means that one of the most important things is going to be your ability to reproduce. So when we look at this set of notes, we do want to know that there are patterns in fossil evidence. You do need to know relative dating. And this tells me the order of the organisms. We also have something called radioactive dating, which will tell us the exact time of the organism, but we focus mostly on relative dating. Big star by biochemical comparisons. This provides the most reliable evidence because you are comparing DNA, and so the more similar it is, the more likely you are to be related. Variation is going to be very important, but it has to be genetic variation. You have to be able to pass it on to your offspring, and then the best fit, the organism that is best for that environment, will survive. So I might take a fish that is really well fit in the ocean, and I might put it in a lake, which is freshwater, and that fish wouldn't survive. So we have to have genetic variations that are best fit to their environment. Geographic isolation. If you are separated by space, you can't reproduce, which means you can't have offspring. So no offspring means your species doesn't survive, or you can't trade genes, so there's no more variation. The importance of the environment. I want you to think about what we call the selection force. What is the importance of the selection force? The selection force decides who, what does the selection force decide? It might be the color of the tree bark is the selection force. It might be that a predator is the selection force. It might be that the female of the population is selecting who gets to what. Now, number one, we talked about P, Anna, H. Prokaryotic, anaerobic, heterotrophics. Why did they have to develop before aerobic eukaryotes? Be sure to include the change in environment and the theory of how organelles evolved. So, talk to me about P and H. Why were P and H most likely the ones? And this one, the Anna, has to do with early Earth. Early Earth was missing something. I'm not going to tell you, but hopefully you remember. Early Earth was missing something. And that's why organisms had to be anaerobic. Please make sure that you define this theory. The theory starts with an E, and it should be right there in your notes. It's the theory of how eukaryotes evolved. Number two, contrast abiogenesis and biogenesis. Abiogenesis means a not life beginning. So we're going to write that right now. Abiogenesis means not life beginning. Most of us recognize many of these words. Bio means life. And biogenesis is actually going to be the idea that life continues through something. We should have that maybe in our notes. Abiogenesis means it's a not life beginning. It's the theory that inorganic compounds like CO2 could form organic compounds which could form cells. So if I have CO2 and H2O, I might be able to form a sugar or a lipid, and I might be able to form a cell. And so that was a man, if we talk about abiogenesis, the scientists were Operin and Miller and Urey. Biogenesis is what happens now. Abiogenesis doesn't happen anymore. Life started from these inorganic molecules forming cells, but now life continues. And so there was a man named Francesco Redi and a man named Pasteur, and they are the scientists who proved that life now continues. Darwin's theory of natural selection, be sure to include the 3 parts and give or draw an example to illustrate your description. I'm going to encourage you to use the moths to describe it, because we see variation, we see an environmental selection force, and we see that those who are best fit get to survive and reproduce. And so we know that there are several parts of natural selection. Some notes talk about 3, our notes talked about 4. What are the 4 parts? And make sure that you give an example. Number 4, penicillin is an antibiotic that was developed and used in the 20th century. At first, the antibiotic was very effective, killing the syphilis bacteria. Over time, more and more became resistant. Explain how this resistance may have developed. It actually developed through a random mutation. The bacteria cannot hope and hope and hope that they will be resistant. A random mutation would have made them resistant, and the random mutation allowed some to survive. Those that survived got to, starts with an R, and that means that the population became resistant. Remember, if you are resistant, you're not hurt by it. What is sexual reproduction speed of evolution? Hint, think about sexual in comparison. Sexual reproduction gives us, starts with a V, gives us genetic differences, or this word that starts with a V. And so why is that so important? The next section, what is the current 7-level classification system? Hint, remember your acronym. So this is King Philip came over for green soup. So I'm going to give you the letters. King Philip came over for green soup. But keep in mind that there is the D, which really goes above that. And the domains were only added in the past 10 to 20 years. What is binomial nomenclature? Remember, nome has to do with name. So it's a bi, like bicycle, is a 2-name naming system. We use the G name and we use the S name. We capitalize one of them, we lowercase the other, and we underline both of them. So give me an example for, let's say, Homo sapien. I'm going to write it incorrectly, and I want you to correct it and write it correctly. How are DNA, biochemical analysis, embryology, and morphology used to classify organisms? They are used to find their similarities and their common ancestors. According to this tree, which 3 pairs of organisms are most closely related? So when I look at this tree, I'm looking for pairs of organisms. So is it the bird and the mammal? Are those 2 most closely related? The bird and the crocodile and the snake and the lizard and the turtle. Looking at this tree, you should be able to clearly see 3 pairs of organisms that are closely related. Which one is most closely related to the ray fin fish? and which organisms are mammals, notice this is an S for plural, are mammals most closely related to. You will see a phylogenetic tree on your EOC, no questions about it. Number 5, use this dichotomous key to help you answer. You will see a dichotomous key on your EOC. Please circle dichotomous key, and next to it write always start with question or statement number 1. And we're going to put a big circle here. If I jump down here to mobile or immobile, that may not help me at all. I have to start up here with number 1. And so is it one cell or is it more than one cell? So you should be able to do the dichotomous key on your own as well. Next we have kingdoms and adaptations, and so I'm going to keep going for just a few more minutes. Label each description with the correct eukaryotic kingdom or kingdoms. So remember, there are 4 eukaryotic kingdoms. There are 2 that are prokaryotic. And so if you look at number 2 down here, bacteria and archaea bacteria are both going to be pro. Be careful with protista. Looks like it should be prokaryotic, but no, I wish it were called eutista, because protista are eukaryotic fungi, are eukaryotic plant and animal. These are all eukaryotic, meaning they have really complex cells. As you're getting ready to fill out that chart in your study guide, I want to tell you what page that chart should be on in your notes, so that hopefully it's really easy for you to fill that out. That chart should be on page 99. So if you have the notes, it should be on page 99. So if you flip to 99, you should be able to get there. This chart comes exactly from that section of notes, so you should be able to do that pretty easily. When we look at this next section, we're going to cover this in the next video, so you should plan on stopping here.